Welcome to our webinar, Insurance Compliance with CSC. My name is Anu Shah and I will be your moderator. Joining us today is Brian Bartnicki. Brian has been with CSC for 9 years and is a graduate of St. Vincent College with degrees in English and political science. In his spare time, Brian plays in the Mid-Atlantic Vintage Baseball League, which follows the rules of 1864 baseball. That means no gloves and old school uniforms. And with that, let's welcome Brian.
Thank you, Anu. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the webinar today. We are going to talk about insurance compliance. Before we begin, I do want to talk about our agenda for this afternoon. First, we're going to briefly touch on CSC. We're going to talk about consequences of noncompliance in the insurance industry, who needs to comply, the types of licenses, challenges that you may be running into or may find, and how CSC can help, and then a very short demonstration followed by a Q&A. So with that, let's talk about CSC. We're a privately held company. We've been in business for over 115 years, and we're currently headquartered in Wilmington, Delaware, and have always been for that matter. We have offices across the world and employ over 2,000 people. And we're currently an SSAE 16 audited company, which basically means we comply to the highest auditing standards as well. And we provide, in some capacity, service to 90% of the Fortune 500. The average tenure of our service organization is about 10.5 years, and we're very proud of that. So before I go ahead and dive into so in the case that you do become non-compliant, what is a consequence of that happening? So what we're going to talk about, number one, are fines and penalties. So how does this apply to the insurance arena? Well, first of all, as most of you are probably familiar with, especially with your resident and non-resident licensing, failure to renew or failure to have an inactive license while producing any type of coverage, I should say, in a particular space or state will result in substantial fines. Additionally, if you are delinquent in your home state, it automatically triggers a delinquency amongst every state that you are in. So it's extremely critical from a compliance perspective that your resident and non-resident licenses are always intact. But of course, the main emphasis, as most of you are probably aware, pertains to your domestic jurisdiction. And the second one, which some people, you all think about it, but it might not be something that you think of every day, is going to be the damage to your agency's reputation. So a lot of times the common feeling is that licensing in general is out of sight, out of mind. Maybe somebody in your tax department is handling it. Maybe you are handling it personally. There could be another group in your organization that is responsible for these types of licenses. But if anything were to occur and you were found non-compliant or you received a fine or maybe there was even a lawsuit, for example, your reputation as a company could be completely damaged. And the last thing you want is to be in the news and have your reputation be destroyed by either, again, the news itself or word of mouth, the experience that your customers have or are affected by that non-compliance. So again, just at a very basic level, these are the most common types of non-compliance that we see in the marketplace. Now, who needs to comply? A lot of times I hear on the phone when I'm talking to our insurance customers, they say, well, I don't know if I need licensing. I don't know if I really need to have a license. Someone's working out of their home. I have an employee working out of his garage. I'm not big enough to have licenses. Believe it or not, no matter what size company you are, small, mid-size, large, or even a Fortune-size entity, you need to make sure in this industry, as it's heavily regulated, that you are compliant. And even if you think you are, it's important maybe to step back and really look into all avenues just to even make sure that what you've done is in fact correct. And we'll get into that as the webinar proceeds. So let's talk about some basic types of licensing in the industry. What is out there? Well, for all of you that are actual insurance underwriters, insurance companies in the world, you have your own insurance licensing, insurance licenses, I should say, with the Department of Insurance. Some of you may also have agencies, the organizations that are going to actually bind the coverage. And then the producer themselves, the person or the agency for that matter, within the states that you're conducting business. And a lot of times, as you find, when you file these matters, you'll notice there's many lines of authority that you file with these producer licenses, such as, fire, health, life, any liability, property, casualty. These are just some examples on the producer line. And then there's some unique licenses, which range from surplus lines to TPA licensing with your administrative claims adjustments, adjuster licenses, which is more of an appraiser, you're going to settle a claim. And then you have appointments, people who are going to actually a link that an agent's going to have to an agency. And then an affiliation, which is ultimately just going to link an individual to an agency as well. So before I continue, I have one other poll that I want to ask to you, and 10% of you have another form, another item, I should say, that is most important. So what are some of the challenges, or just some challenges that you run into as an organization? Other common ones that we find are going to be decentralization, which ultimately comes out to no transparency. There is no transparency due to decentralization. So how does that work? Well, in the decentralized aspect, especially if you have multiple offices, there are most scenarios you may have people that handle their own work. They may not be, you don't have one person perhaps handling all of your licensure. You may not have this scenario. You may have one consolidated area which this is done. But a lot of times people, when you have this decentralized model, don't really necessarily know what is being handled by other offices. Sometimes there can be a lapse in what is done because the expectation is another branch is responsible. But that's just one major challenge. The second is going to be the transparency, which is what I sort of alluded to of people not knowing what's going on. But the key to that is there's ultimately no collaboration. And to really revert back to the comment or the item, the consequence that I mentioned about your reputation, transparency is absolutely key as it pertains to ensuring that your reputation is secure. So moving on, researching what is required is another major challenge. What line of authority do I need in my non-resident state? For example, a wonderful thing that I come across all the time is in the state of Nebraska. In Nebraska, when you file for travel insurance, for example, you actually need to file a unique travel insurance line versus just your regular producer license. It might be under another term. It might not be called travel insurance. It might be something completely different. So how do we define what it is that we need to apply for? Again, not every state is using the same terminology to obtain certain licenses. So it's absolutely critical that you understand that you're applying for the right things. Do you need a license with each level of government? Sometimes people tell me, I'll use the example about a man working out of his home. And this is what I hear every time. I have John Smith is working out of his house. He's selling insurance. He just needs his state producer license. Well, the reality is there are many cities across the country that have what's called a home occupation license. And there's also other jurisdictions that will require, for example, you apply for a business tax receipt or perhaps a certificate of use tax, sales and use tax. Even though it's not sales and use tax, they might call it sales and use tax. You might see an application for authority, not necessarily with the Secretary of State, but a jurisdiction may call it an application of authority with their particular level of government, the county or the city. Some particular areas you'll find will be an incorporated versus an unincorporated area. You may have an office that's on X side of the street, which may fall outside city limits and therefore is regulated by the county and not the city. So it's important to make sure that you've applied for the correct type of licensing. And how do you allocate time for the research? Everyone has tons of responsibilities throughout their day. We all have job expectations or job-related standards that we're responsible of hitting. Research takes hours. The amount of projects and the amount of responsibilities that you have on your plate many times do not dictate or not allow for you to have time to spend researching. Sometimes this results in under-licensure, or it also you run the risk of over-licensing. Maybe you filed something unnecessarily just to do it because you don't want to run the risk of missing anything. But over time, you end up spending more money than you need to be because you're over-licensed in that area. So what are some of the filing challenges? Well, generally, most of you may be filing on CIRCON or NIPR, which again, the National Insurance Producer Registry, or you might be filing directly with the Department of Insurance. Believe it or not, sometimes, when people, knowing where to file, what's best, do I send the paperwork directly to the Department of Insurance, or can I file online? I don't have a login or password, I don't have time to do it. Believe it or not, filing where to file is sometimes a challenge in the industry. And what are the costs? People always say, I'm thinking about registering to do fire insurance or life insurance in a state. We're thinking about expanding, but we don't know what that's going to cost us. I want to know what it's going to cost in every state to make this work happen. Well, it's very difficult to budget or understand what that is because every state, most of the time, based off of the lines of authority that you're applying for, in fact, has fluctuating costs, different ways in which they calculate your licensing fees to be. So understanding what the cost would be when you make a decision to get licensed is another challenge from a budgeting perspective all on its own. For renewals, when do you need to renew your licensing? In the regulated insurance field, for those of you who are producers on the line, I'm sure you've run into scenarios where some states make your birth date as the tickler to renew your license. Some of you may have it on the anniversary date. When did you apply for your license? And others might just be based on your company or agency itself. What was the anniversary date, or the fiscal, not the anniversary, your fiscal year end, I should say, of your company, which would in fact then dictate when you had to renew your licenses. So that's a renewal challenge, and a lot of times you're manually tracking it. You probably have some type of format which you're changing constantly. For those of you that are mid-size or small or large, everybody on the call, I should say, organizing your files, looking at it, monitoring it, again, juggling everything else that you're doing in your day is incredibly time-consuming, and it's something that don't feel alone if you're missing these filings because everyone's running into the scenario. So with the renewals, it's totally the manual tracking along with knowing when actually it needs to be filed in that jurisdiction as well. But don't be alarmed. If any of you are experiencing the items that we've come across or spoken about, CSC is here to help. So what do we have, or what is the guidance that we can provide to you as an organization? Well, just so you know, we have an in-house business license team in Wilmington, Delaware. We do not outsource to any third party. We have a nationwide footprint. That is our physical offices along with people on the ground to assist, and we have law knowledge and just the experience from our business being around for over 115 years. We have within our team the following areas are which we can help. We can help you with research of new business. Maybe you're going to open an agency. Maybe you're going to go into TPA licensing. What are the requirements for you to go into that form of business or to expand into a particular state? We have something that's called a business license research package. And what you do is you send us a questionnaire on your company, which is we send you, it's about a page and a half, and you complete it. And we take the information that you've populated on the way you're operating your business and the type of insurance that you're involved in, along with our expertise and our resources, which we have, and we will provide to you a report that will tell you all the requirements at the state, county, city level, even some states like Pennsylvania. For any of you who are in that state on the line, there'll be townships, there'll be villages, there'll be boroughs, school districts in some states. Believe it or not, these are all areas of authority that may issue a license. So in insurance, people just think it's state, state, state. It's not just state. There's so many other areas. We don't want you to have to worry about researching it. We will do it for you if need be. For existing businesses, we can help audit what you have on file. As I mentioned, one of the challenges is people may over-license to be safe. We can tell you if what you filed is unnecessary based off of your business model. So we will not only tell you what license requirements you have and don't need, but we'll also tell you the status of the licenses you have on file and if anything is missing. So it's the audit of what you have, the gap of what's missing, and also what you file that's unnecessary. For those of you that are acquiring businesses or going through transactions, this is a very popular time of year, with the fourth quarter, for mergers to come down. In the event that you're going through an acquisition, we do have due diligence research services in the insurance field where we can tell you how to transfer the owner of a particular license. So we can actually go ahead and find out if the department or the governing body requires a new application. Maybe they need a letter on letterhead sent and original hand-delivered. Maybe they just need a phone call. Again, every jurisdiction is different. And we're not just talking about, again, the state. We could be talking about cities and counties as well. We are here to help determine what that process is and help you file even thereafter, which is the next way that we can help, which is filing. So whether you have new licenses, permits, any types of registrations, we can help. If you're a corporate headquarters, if you have fire permits, if you have a local city license, if you have your producer licenses for your agency, whatever the licenses we spoke about, you name it, we can help you file it. New in any capacity. And then from a tracking perspective, we can take all the data you have, take your insurance data, and we can actually build it into your CSC account, which allows you to monitor all your license renewals. You know when everything's coming due. You'll actually get emails when your licenses are coming within 60 days up for renewal. And again, it's also going to allow you to track any ownership changes that you are in the process of managing. If you really want to turn the key, and the capstone of our service is going to be our full service product, where you can actually hand everything over to us. We can change the mailing address to CSC, and at that point in time, all renewals that come in the mail, everything that from a tracking perspective we will manage online, and we do that through our portfolio management system, which is the brief demonstration that I wanted to show you at the end of the call. But what that's going to do, it's going to have all the copies of your licenses, it's going to run custom reports of your licenses, it's going to be the mechanism which triggers your expiration reports, and it's going to provide a consolidated, centralized, transparent platform on your account, so you don't have to worry about any of the challenges or any of the items that you run into that hinder you in your day. So before I jump into the demonstration of the portfolio itself, I have one last poll on my side that I do want to ask Mario today. All right, so what I'm going to do now is just before we jump in, I just want to go over some key points about the system that we're going to see. Number one, it's incredibly easy to implement. It is in the cloud. There are any number of users which you wish. There is no cost for the number of users. There's no licensing fees. There's no IT involvement. You have, again, as many users as you want. It's a turnkey. You send us your data. We simply build it into your account. And then training and support are included. There is no cost, whether it be the day you have it or in perpetuity. We do not charge for any assistance. It's going to web-based. It's going to centralize everything, which ultimately is going to prevent you from having missed penalties and deadlines. And I'm going to show you how it monitors the expiration and alerts. So now we're going to load my screen here for the portfolio. And if everyone, with that, I will.